55,000 jobs. That number has been showing up in headlines, LinkedIn posts, and quiet searches that happen after everyone else has gone to bed. Most people who encountered it felt something, a spike, a tightening, and then weren't sure what to do with it. Not because they're prone to panic, because the number arrived without a frame. It landed in the chest before it could land in the mind. And once something lands in the chest first, it takes a specific kind of conversation to move it somewhere useful. That's what this video is. Not reassurance, not amplification. The honest read, the one that tells you what the number actually is, where it came from, what it measures, and what it means for someone in your specific situation. By the end of this, you'll have a data-grounded answer. Not a headline version, not a don't worry version, the actual version. Let's start with what 55,000 actually measures, because the first thing worth knowing is that job loss figures tied to AI are not collected the same way across every source that publishes them. Some counts track verified layoffs, where companies explicitly cited automation or AI in their filings. Some track broader workforce reductions in sectors where AI adoption is accelerating and attribute the displacement retroactively. Some are projections dressed up as current data. The 55,000 figure, and variations of it you may have seen, draws primarily from the first category, documented layoffs in which AI or automation was named as a contributing factor by the employer. That's a real number. It deserves to be taken seriously. What it doesn't tell you, and what almost no headline bothers to say, is where those jobs were. Because the distribution is not what most people assume. The sectors with the highest documented AI-related displacement in the first half of 2025 were not the ones that showed up most in the cultural conversation about AI. Customer service and contact center roles accounted for the largest share. Call routing, first response support, basic query handling, data entry, document processing, and clerical roles accounted for a significant second cluster. Entry-level content production, templated writing, basic image generation, routine copywriting made up a third. These are real jobs. The people who held them are real people. The displacement is not abstract, but they share something structurally specific. And understanding that structure is what turns a frightening headline into useful information. What these roles have in common is that they were built primarily around the execution of repeatable, rule-based tasks with low contextual complexity. Tasks where the input was predictable, where the output could be evaluated against a template, where professional judgment, the kind built over years of experience, was not the primary value being delivered. That's not a dismissal, that's a description. And it matters enormously for what comes next. So here's what the headline couldn't fit. AI doesn't replace jobs the way previous automation did. Previous automation replaced roles. A machine replaced a line worker. A software system replaced a filing clerk. The role disappeared. What's happening now is different, and in some ways harder to see. AI is replacing tasks inside roles. Not the job, the task. A financial analyst role contains dozens of discrete tasks: data gathering, formatting, preliminary modeling, report drafting, client communication, judgment calls, relationship management, institutional knowledge application. I can now do several of those tasks faster and cheaper than a human doing them manually. But here's the thing that doesn't make it into the 55,000 figure. A role where 4 tasks have been automated does not automatically become a role that disappears. In many cases, not all, but many, it becomes a role where one person can now do what previously required a team, or a role where the analyst spends less time on data formatting and more time on the judgment calls that actually require 20 years of reading the room, or a role that is restructured, not eliminated, around the tasks that remain stubbornly human. The displacement number counts jobs. The mechanism operates on tasks. Those are 2 different units of measurement, and confusing them is where most of the fear gets generated, and most of the useful analysis gets lost. This distinction matters for a specific reason. If AI eliminates jobs, the question is my job on the list? That's a binary. Yes or no, safe or not safe. If AI eliminates tasks, the question is different. Which tasks in my role are exposed, and which ones aren't? That's a diagnostic. It has a specific answer. And the specific answer is almost always more useful than the binary. So let's do the actual diagnostic, not a general one, a specific one. The kind worth doing if you've been carrying this number around and trying to figure out what it means for you. There are 3 questions worth asking about any role, including yours, when trying to read actual AI exposure honestly. The first question: how much of this role's value is delivered through the execution of repeatable tasks? Repeatable means the input is similar most of the time. The output follows a recognizable pattern, and someone with less experience could do it given enough time and the right template. The higher the percentage of the role that fits that description, the higher the task level exposure. The second question: how much of this role's value lives in contextual judgment? Decisions that require knowing the history, reading the people, understanding what the data doesn't say. That's not a romanticization of experience. That's a description of what AI genuinely cannot replicate at the current state of development, and what it is unlikely to replicate cleanly for the foreseeable future. Because contextual judgment isn't a skill, it's an accumulation. It's 20 years of pattern recognition that doesn't live in a document. It lives in the person who is in the room. The third question: how visible is this role's output to people who make resourcing decisions? This one matters for a different reason. Even roles with high contextual value get restructured if the people making decisions can't see that value clearly. Now, here's what the honest read looks like when you put those together. The roles with the highest actual exposure, not headline exposure, actual exposure, are roles where the value is predominantly task-based, where the contextual judgment component is low or invisible, and where the output is easily auditable against a template. The roles with the lowest actual exposure are roles where contextual judgment is the primary deliverable, where institutional knowledge is genuinely embedded in the person, and where the cost of getting it wrong is high enough that human accountability still matters. Most mid-career professionals with 15 to 25 years of domain expertise are not in the first category. They're in the second, or they're in a mixed position where some tasks are exposed and the core value isn't. The number that landed in your chest isn't wrong. 55,000 is real. The displacement is real. The people who lost those jobs are real. But the number is measuring the wrong unit for your situation. Jobs aren't what AI primarily replaces right now. Tasks are. And knowing which tasks in your specific role are exposed and which ones aren't is the only version of this question that actually produces a useful answer. The headline asked, "Is your job safe?" That's not the right question. The right question is, which parts of what you do are being automated, and which parts have just become more valuable because everything around them is? If you want to apply that framework specifically to your role, not in general, but with your actual job title and tasks in mind, there's a 12-question assessment in the description built exactly for this. It takes about 10 minutes. It produces a 1-page read of your actual exposure, not the media version, not false comfort, and a short action plan based on what it finds. It's the personal version of what this video did at the general level. Link is in the description. So you now have a more calibrated read on the number. What do you actually do with it? Because the goal here was never just to feel better informed. Feeling informed without a direction is just a more comfortable version of the same paralysis. The direction is this. Take the role you actually hold, not a hypothetical version, your actual job, and spend 20 minutes on one question. Of everything you do in a given week, what percentage of it would a smart, diligent junior person be able to do with access to the right tools? Not, could AI do this in theory? The more useful question, could someone less experienced execute this specific task if they had enough scaffolding? The tasks that answer yes, those are your exposed tasks, not your exposed job. Your exposed tasks, the tasks that answer no, the ones where your specific history, your specific relationships, your specific read of the room are genuinely embedded in the output. Those are your protected tasks. What you do with that list is the actual work. For the exposed tasks, this is where AI is worth deploying first. Not because the task is going away immediately, but because using AI to handle it faster and more accurately frees up your capacity for the work that actually can't be replicated. For the protected tasks, this is what your professional story should be built around right now. Not, I have 20 years of experience. That's a length. It doesn't describe value. I have 20 years of contextual judgment in this specific domain, and that's the component that I cannot generate from a prompt. That's a position. It describes something irreplaceable. The 55,000 number is a real signal. It's telling you something about the pace of change. It is not telling you that you are personally next. unless you have not looked clearly at what your role actually is and what part of it is genuinely yours. The 20 minutes. That's the first move. Not a course. Not a complete career pivot. A list. Tasks on one side, honest notes on the other. That's the version of this question worth answering. If you want the structured version of that assessment, the one that turns those questions into a clear personal picture, the link in the description is where that lives. It's the next step from here, if you want it. When you saw that number, or one like it, what was the first thing your mind went to? Drop it in the comments. So here's what you actually have now. Not a reassurance that everything is fine. Not a confirmation that the worst is coming. A frame. 55,000 is a real number, measuring a real thing. Documented displacement in roles built primarily around repeatable, low-contextual tasks, concentrated in sectors where that description fits most of the work. It is not a random sample of the professional population. It is not evenly distributed across all roles and all experience levels. And it is not measuring what most people, when they feel afraid, are actually afraid of. What you now have is the ability to distinguish between the part of your role that is genuinely task-exposed and the part where your 20 years of contextual judgment is not competing with AI, but is the thing that makes AI produce something worth using. That distinction is more valuable than most of what gets packaged and sold as AI career advice. It gives you somewhere to stand. The professional you've been building for 2 decades is not what the 55,000 number is measuring. It was never a number that could measure that. The ground has moved. The number is one piece of evidence of that. But evidence is not a verdict. Not until you've read it with the right frame. You have that frame now. The one thing to do with it before the end of this week. The 20 minutes. The honest list. Tasks on one side. What makes them yours on the other? That's mid-transition. Not falling behind. Those are completely different things. And now you have a way to see the difference.